I want to talk about fraud, specifically the kind that you commit against yourself. And I don't know if you know that feeling when you are in a room that you actually earned the right to be in. And some part of you, some part of your brain is quietly running a background check. And you're asking those questions. Does she know that you don't have a computer science degree? Does he know that you figured out half of this as you went along? Does this whole room know that the version of you they invited is a slightly more polished version of someone who is still on certain Tuesdays, who's making it up? And we call that imposter syndrome, but I call it something else, something more specific. I call it identity fraud. And here's the thing about identity fraud. The con artist is not the one that they think that it is. Let me show you what I mean by that. Identity fraud in the traditional sense is when someone takes your credentials and then they operating under your name. They didn't have the access. They have the access, but they didn't earn the access. They borrowed the identity, and eventually, at some point, always, the accounts they will not match. Now, here is what actually happened to most of us. Someone else's identity, it got issued to us at some point in our life. Your family handed you a role. Your culture handed you a script. Your industry, it handed you a template. And you have been operating under those credentials that were never actually yours. So the fraud is not that you don't belong. The fraud is that you have been signing someone else's name this whole time. And the anxiety that you keep feeling, it is that low hum of, hey, I'm about to find out. It isn't your conscience that is catching up to it is not your conscience that is catching up to your incompetence. It is your actually identity that is knocking on the door of the borrowed identity. And it is the real account that is flagging all these unauthorized transactions. So the system is working correctly, but you misread the alerts. You misread the red flag. Now let's look for a second at where that identity fraud originated. Because nobody starts with a blank identity at birth. No one. You were issued one very early in life by the people who raised you, by the first rooms that you walked into, by the version of success that your community decided that was acceptable. And for me, it was specific. Haitian household, high achievement, no complaints. You perform excellence because excellence is the only protection you have. You don't negotiate, you don't ask for help. You carry it quietly and then you carry it very well. That identity, it kept me safe for a very long time. But I want to be honest about that. It was not useless, but it was issued for conditions that no longer exist today. But I kept running it like it was a software that hasn't been updated since 1995, but that software is still operating on a 2026 system. Everything is going to be slow. Nothing will integrate. And then you spend half of your energy just maintaining a program that was never designed for where you are in life now. And that is not imposter syndrome. That is a system problem. And that identity fraud, it's also costing you. And here's what it is costing you in practice. Because when you are operating under a borrowed identity, performing the versions of you that the room expects you to, you are running two processes simultaneously. The actual work and the maintenance of that performance. So that maintenance is the premium, the performance premium, and is the overhead cost of being someone that you are not. So it runs in the background constantly. It does not show up on any deliverables, but it is consuming processing power that belongs to the actual work. As a software engineer and a launch strategist, I can tell you exactly what this looks like in a system. It looks like a background application that you forgot and you left it open. It's also invisible, it's quiet, but it's also slowly draining the battery. And then you sit there wondering why you are exhausted when the to-do list wasn't even that long today. It's the premium. It's always been the premium. And the fix is not to work harder. The fix is to just close the application, shut it down. And let me tell you what I found when I actually audited my own life. Not the life on resume, not the Webley on resume, the real life. I came to this country with no safety net, and I built a technical skill set in an industry that did not expect me to be there. I reversed engineered systems that other people outsourced. I showed up in rooms where I was the only one of me, and I did not disappear. None of that is in my LinkedIn headline. And for years, none of it felt like a credential because it did not look like the credentials that the room was issuing. But here is the audit, the finding of my audits. The most durable expertise that I have, it came from problem that no one else was solving. I was not an imposter. I was just operating in a category that hadn't been named yet. And I think that this is a significant difference. And that forced me to ask myself 3 questions and to answer them honestly. The first one is, what is the identity that I'm currently running on? Where was that identity issued and by whom? Is it mine or is it a well-maintained inheritance? Number 2, what is the performance premium costing me? Not in dollars, but in processing power. How much of your creative and strategic capacity is being consumed by background maintenance of a version of you that isn't actually you anymore? What expertise do you have that exists outside of what anyone officially taught you? Because that unissued credential, the thing that you built in the dark, the problem that you solved because you had to, that is actually your intellectual property. And it is not a fraud. It is not imposter syndrome. It is proprietary. Identity fraud is not a character flaw. It is what happens when you are handed someone else's operating system and then you are told to run it indefinitely without ever being given access to your own source code for it. So the audit is not about proving that you belong, because you already belong. The audit is about figuring out which version of you is actually showing up and whether you chose that version. What I'm going to say is run your own software, because I promise you that system runs faster. I'm Webley, and the change that I'm making is this. I am retiring the inherited identity and operating under my own credentials fully, finally, and without an apology footnote. And with that, I will see you tomorrow.